Connect. My name is Asuncion Sanz. I am the president of the board of Virtual Educa Foundation in the US. Today we have the great pleasure of having with us Anthony Salcito. He is the vice president for worldwide education at Microsoft. In his role leading the worldwide execution of Microsoft's vision for education, Anthony Salcito works to help empower educators and inspire students to achieve more. He aims to transform the way we learn with the support of technology to help build critical skills for the modern global workplace. Prior to taking this role in 2009, Salcito was General Manager of Education in the US, supporting schools and universities across the country. He was also at the center of Microsoft's involvement in the creation of the School of the Future, a pioneering partnership with a schools district of Philadelphia, and now the first of many Microsoft Showcase schools around the world. Salcito has spent his early years at Microsoft architecting high-profile product launches for Windows NT and Windows 95. But he's involved with a variety of outreach projects. He has served on the board of directors for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Western Governors University, Stevens Institute of Technology, Web Campus, and currently serves on the boards of the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship, Teach.org, and the European Foundation for Management Development. Virtual Educa Connect has the honor to have Anthony in its advisory board, and he asked to be excused from our board meeting yesterday. But we won't hold it against him. He had a good reason, as at the Microsoft sales meeting that held him, a 13% hike in revenue was reported, despite the health crisis, so that the company must be doing something right. We are proud to have them as our partners, and we're more than ready to hear everything Anthony has to say. Please welcome Anthony Salcito. Anthony, the mic is yours.
Hey, well, thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. And I was sorry to miss our board meeting yesterday, but I look forward to being part of this great organization and really reflecting on what has been a truly unprecedented time in the transformation that's taking place all around the world at a very, very rapid pace. I want to start by hoping all of you are staying safe and doing well and keeping the right mindset for this change. It's often easy for all of us to feel our own anxieties and uncertainties spill out into our view of the real impact that we can make on our students and the real transformation that's possible in education. Starting with mindset every day in the culture that you create in your schools, virtually or physically, the energy that you bring to your students is far more important than any technology reality. It's the foundation for the change that we do need to make. But I want to reflect a little bit about the transformation that's happening. It's been something that I've frankly been humbled by the heroism and the support that educators have provided through these uncertain times. And one of the things that warms my heart is that educators who may have been fearful of the rise of technology would potentially diminish their value, have seen firsthand over these last several months and weeks that as the world shifted to remote learning and technology became more center stage in education, the value and the appreciation of teachers only rose because as parents and schoolwork came onto the kitchen table, the visibility of the amazing work that teachers do every single day became very, very apparent. So I'm hopeful that we can move forward in a world where teachers have greater connection to the foundation of change and innovation and are appreciated in every society as part of the future. As technology grows, we need more great educators and teachers, and that became apparent. I reflect back on a keynote that I did in 2020, in the early kickoff of 2020 at the Bet Arena in Bet London in early January. And I used the time to reflect on where I felt the next decade of change and transformation would be. I've been working with schools to transform the ways in which technology can help learning for more than 20 years. So I thought it would be important to reflect on where I see the big shift happening over the next decade. Now, little did I realize that just a few weeks later, the change that I had been forecasting would have been real due to the reaction and response to COVID-19. I reflect on the reality that technology hasn't really aligned to the change that we need to make in education. And it's not to say that technology advancement has happened beyond or ahead of education pace. We know that the dynamics of technology will always change more. It's just the type of industry it is. I don't expect or need the education dynamics to change as much. That would probably be a bad thing in most of the world. But what I was reflecting on is that we haven't actually embraced the ways technology has allowed us to think differently and frankly more natural about the change that's needed inside of education. For much of the time that I've been working with schools over the last 27 years, the focus has largely been acquiring technology for the classroom. And even that word acquisition has often defined the strategy on technology in most parts of the world. The technology strategy in many parts of the world today is let's acquire devices or Wi-Fi or digital tools, robots, etc. And we haven't done enough to really think differently about technology's role to fundamentally shift what's possible and potential with learning and learning outcomes. We've definitely been over pivoted on what's going on in the school and in the classroom with technology. And the other elements, optimizing the infrastructure for safety, efficiency, and cost savings, and importantly, learning beyond the school and classroom, have been underserved as it relates to schools globally. Now, we've got to reposition this and really shift. And I think COVID-19 has helped us understand the balance. We're going to need to think about certainly the reality of students learning in school, face-to-face with teachers and other students inside classrooms, really think about the need for optimizing infrastructure. And there's a number of reasons why, because of school budget pressures, the reality of data analytics that can actually empower much more personalization and insight for student learners. And then lastly, really be more thoughtful about how we optimize for learning beyond the classroom. Now, this is not an emergency response to a crisis. This is an opportunity for us to truly embrace the power to extend learning, to create much more personalized learning journeys for every student, and have educators be able to create a bigger impact than they could for a small lecture or a short few hours that they have with students every day. And this dynamic is absolutely the thing that we've got to take forward as we go forward in this journey. Now, when I reflect on school closing, it was certainly an interesting time. Microsoft had been engaged with schools in China, Hong Kong, Korea, even early days in Italy, and we were learning constantly every single day. That's one of the great things about being so connected digitally, is the opportunity for us to learn and see what's happening has really improved, and really the speed of which we can share insight has really been impactful. We learned a lot, and frankly, there's still and have been tremendous struggles. Educators who have been overwhelmed by their own personal impact of certainly this great tragedy and pandemic, to the uncertainty of using these digital tools in these new ways, to the impact on families and parents, to the realities of equity on devices. And there's still struggles around the world that we need to address. We also have seen tremendous innovation and really some really heroic activities that have been happening by educators that have learned to use these tools and really embrace a much more dynamic approach to the ways in which we can connect students. And as we move along through crisis response and evolve to the next phase, we definitely switched on a remote learning lever. We pushed a button and said, we're going to use technology to extend learning beyond school and classrooms. I would argue that just, whether there's a vaccination or whether we decide for sure that there's no future risk of pandemic and students can return to school, we can't ever switch that remote learning button off. This is something that we've got to embrace as truly the new normal of education transformation going forward. Now, as we think about the dynamics, there was certainly significant impact, and that's true, and that the numbers still continue to grow. And while I've been working with many schools have returned to classrooms and returned to school, many parts of the world are still impacted by continued growth of the virus and uncertainty about what to do next. And certainly we're working with schools to think about the journey back to school. And this is an important journey and something that all of us certainly want. We want to be back with our children and students in classrooms. We want to be able to see the faces and energy that we can feel inside of the walls of a school. But while we want to go back to school, we shouldn't want to go backwards. Not long for the time before COVID-19 to say it would be great if we could just go back to that day. What we need to do is actually go forward to school, to where we think about what we've learned, what we've gained over these last few months, and apply it to the ways in which we use our classroom time face-to-face. One of the things about our human connection over these times is it's certainly something that we didn't appreciate as much as we do now. The ability to hug and embrace, the ability to spend time with our friends, to be together physically. We've gotten a deeper appreciation. We're going to need to apply that appreciation to how we spend our time with students in schools. Just like we'll need to evolve how we use the digital canvas, we're going to need to be much more purposeful on where we use our time with students inside classrooms. So when we get back together, it's not going to be effective just to replicate the things that we were doing fine and effectively online. We're going to want to keep doing those, but use our time with our schools and our children in more meaningful ways where we can do storytelling, share energy, work on physical manipulatives, have students collaborate in ways that they couldn't easily do virtually. That has got to be part of the journey as we go back to normal. Now, as we think about digital transformation, this is the reality that we're going to be facing. This is the work Virtual Educa does and helps champion. And we have a great legacy of championing that globally. We are going to be facing really over the next 12 to 18 months to 2 years, depending on your point of view, the most fundamental opportunity to transform technology and technology's role in supporting a broader transformation in education. And we're living through history right now. And so we've got to work together, collaborate with ideas and exemplars all around the world, bring in voice of parents, students, and educators to help navigate what I think will be really foundational for many parts of the world to see change and perhaps more rapidly embrace change that would have taken decades to do prior. Now, as I started off early, as we think about digital transformation, the technology is great, the people are better and more important. We've got to make sure that we're serving the needs of learners and parents and educators. We've got to make sure that the skills, the joy, the fears, the emotional connection that we have to curriculum and content is still paramount for what we're trying to achieve in schools. This is going to be something that's needed in the world of work, but it's absolutely something that we've got to embrace. Don't lose that sight. Now, we've seen that become challenged in many ways. And in some cases, in the early days of COVID-19 response, remote learning equaled a video conference, just like we're doing now. And teachers converted their curriculum to video conferencing. Students were spending 6 hours in front of a screen. And we quickly realized that wasn't people-centric and didn't work as well. Even families that had a couple of devices, which would have been great, from a global perspective for percentages of access prior to COVID, were challenged where 3 or 4 students in a family where their parents also needed to use a device all had the same science class at the same time. Increasingly, what we're going to have to do is be far more varied. We know the future of learning is going to be blended and hybrid. But blended and hybrid doesn't equal virtual and physical. The blend is actually across both sections in many ways. Physical meaning time in classrooms with a group of students, maybe a few students working on a project together with physical materials. Virtual could mean small groups, asynchronous and synchronous content, using a variety of digital tools, using physical books and assignments that students are working on independently, connecting virtually with teachers one-on-one. A range of different tools and modalities need to be applied, and certainly the technology is keeping pace. Now, we've got to build a great digital strategy as we embrace this transition and understand how to navigate this real hybrid opportunity. But it really is a business strategy, frankly. It's the foundation of why we're in school, what it's about, the role of educators and every member of the institution to serve the ultimate impact. It's not just about building a technology strategy for deploying devices or rolling out a new software. It's fundamental to the ways in which we're going to shape the future of education going forward. We've got to make a decision around how we think about the value of a classroom time. What's different about our schools and classrooms? How are we thinking differently about our curriculum design in this environment? And this is not an environment that's COVID related. Let's push that past. The environment is where the world has switched on the concept of remote learning. We've got to figure out how we can use it to get us grow faster. And then one of the big things that we're going to have to do in this new world is really think about the value and the meaning of assessment. How do we, create a personalized learning environment that is truly powered by data, powered by flexibility of a broader learning canvas, and recognize the inherent challenge of a personalized learning path and a standardized assessment, and figure out how we can think differently about assessment in a world where individual mastery and time is a bigger variable. We have to think differently about assessment. That's something that I think will be very, very exciting over the next several years as we move forward in the education environment. The one thing that I will also share throughout, and we've seen great examples of this. I shared an example yesterday in a team meeting I had of a great teacher, Felicia Ford, in Atlanta Public Schools, who wanted to use Minecraft Education Edition in her classroom, but was uncertain about how to do it. So she basically asked her students to do it for her. And bringing students' voice and their agency forward in this time is more important than ever. First, listening to how they're feeling. Are they concerned? Are they nervous? Are they fearful? And then working to power them to take action and to use and own this opportunity with virtual learning is certainly a critical opportunity for all of you. I also want to make sure that as we go forward, we recognize the importance of teachers. I shared earlier about, I think the respect and appreciation for teachers has grown. That's true for me as well. I've had an opportunity to connect with hundreds of teachers over the last several weeks and months, and I have been blown away by the innovation, the ingenuity, the persistence, and the fearlessness on embracing change. And I know we've got to keep that energy going and really catalyze it all around the world as we move forward. It's certainly critical as we go, and I want to just leave you with a couple of things as it relates to what Microsoft is doing to help. We know skills are huge as it relates to the ways in which we're preparing schools and teachers. And whether it's building on productivity skills that we're doing every day with curriculum that we provide to schools, with courses that we make available digitally for free for teachers and students. We've built a hub, aka.microsoft/learn for EDU is the URLs you can see on the slide. Resources for learning pathways to help students with career preparedness, digital skilling for teachers on how to embrace remote learning environments, even resources that we made available for parents to help get them started with distance learning to support the journeys that you all have ahead. So there's a number of great things to support you across Microsoft and many other companies that want to be there for help, but it really starts with you embracing this mindset of change, this mindset embracing a positive energy about the world we're living in and how we can make it a better world for our students, and empowering students to really bring their best forward to help us all and be on the front lines of the future pandemics that we'll face as a globe, and be better served to prepare and prepared to support us than perhaps we were in the start of this pandemic. with that, I certainly am open to any questions that you may have, and really thank you for the work that you're doing every single day on behalf of your schools and your students.